I am Justin Boyd.
Hi, I'm Brittany Pacheco.
And I'm the Black Panther.
Interesting.
And we are Wakanda Forever. No, we are the Watchers in the Basement, but Wakanda Forever.
Yep, Wakanda Forever, definitely. Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement. We are here today to talk about Black Panther Wakanda Forever. It's the 30th film in the MCU. 30th. Think about how
Damn.
crazy that is. It's the 7th film in Phase 4, which we're going to rank the Phase 4 films later on. It's the second Black Panther movie, of course. It's the sequel to the blockbuster first movie, which made $1.4 billion, the 14th highest grossing movie of all time. And it's the 5th appearance of the Black Panther in the MCU. So with that, lots of numbers. And I've got sirens on my end, so I got a lot of sound over here also. I guess, so let's talk about money. I might as well mention the movie's already made $330 million worldwide in its opening weekend. 180, which were here in domestic here in the United States.
We all attributed to that.
We did attribute to that, definitely. So let's get our overall thoughts. Brittany, what'd you think about Black Panther Wakanda Forever?
So when we briefly talked about this, I said I had no expectations whatsoever. And I think for me personally, that was the way to look at this movie, just because there was a lot going on. Obviously, paying tribute to Chadwick Boseman, aka King T'Challa, aka the Black Panther. I think all that was beautifully done. We'll talk more about that later. But not knowing anything about Namor, I'm going to say Namor because that's how Tenoch Huerta pronounces it, but not knowing anything about him, not having read any of the comics, blew me away. Just that whole storyline blew me away. There are some plot holes that I do want to discuss because there's a couple, but overall, I really did enjoy this movie. At different times, I did feel like, okay, I've been sitting for a long time because it's a 2-hour, 45-minute movie, more or less, right? I was tired of sitting, let's put it that way. But the pacing of the movie, I think, was extremely well done. And it didn't seem like an actual almost 3-hour movie, in my opinion. Others will agree or disagree. That's perfectly fine. But overall, I was really happy with the movie. I was good. I was solid emotionally up until the mid-credit, and then just tears, just tears, and they weren't even thug tears, okay? They were tears, all right? So I was impressed with the movie. I did quite enjoy it.
Yeah. And by the way, as always, we'll be spoiling stuff. So
yes,
yeah,
throw up the banner
definitely
here.
see the
Warning, spoilers ahead.
There we go. Frank, what are your overall thoughts of Black Panther Wakanda Forever?
I had high expectations. Ryan Coogler for me is 5-0. He's like rocking an undefeated record when it comes to films, from Fruitvale Station to Creed to Black Panther 2. The guy does not miss for me. So with everything that went on the last couple of years, I knew that he will create a storyline that will fit the narrative for the movie and for the rest of the MCU. And he didn't disappoint. And I felt like the cast stepped that game up too. I mean, there's a glaring hole with Mr. Boseman not being here due to his passing a couple years ago. And I felt it through the movie, from the opening scene to how they wrote him off, and it just felt different, like the anguish, the despair. I don't think I was acting. I think that was just them still grieving, but on camera. And when you have thespians like Letitia Wright and Lupita and Bassett, even how they talked about him in the movie, you can tell that was from the heart, from all three perspectives. I read articles about how close Letitia and Chadwick were. They had a sibling relationship, and so I can imagine how hard it was for her to go on and not only act this movie without her screening partner, but to take on that mantle. I had no complaints about it being 3 hours long, only because you get these kind of movies once every 4 to 5 to 6 years. So for me, it's like if I can watch 7-8 hours of Game of Thrones in one sitting, 3 hours for me in a Marvel film.
In one sitting, 7 or 8 hours of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, I really. That's one of the only shows I can actually sit that long and watch. But for me, 3 hour movies of a series that comes out once every 4 or 5 years, I can sacrifice 3 hours of my day. That's nothing to me. No, I was good. And then once we got to the end, like Brittany said, the mid credit scene, man, like it was so genius for Ryan to add that, to still have that name still prevalent for movies from here on out, for movies to come, and to have that succession be introduced to the movies, I thought was genius. I loved it, man. I thought everybody did a great job. I thought Huerta that plays Namor, even moving his story a little bit and adding, Ryan's gonna bring a socialism, colonizing aspect to these characters, and to infuse, this Yucatan Mayan history with Namor. I thought was genius. It flowed and had that commonality of what both these nations are going through. With
Mi gente.
It was great. I thought it was wonderful. So I can do a 10 out of 10. I fucking loved it, man. T, what about you?
Well, I'll start by piggybacking off everything you said about Ryan Coogler. Yeah, I tweeted it last night while I was watching for the second time. Not last night, but yesterday afternoon while I was watching on my second showing. Like, Ryan Coogler deserves every non-poisonous flower in the world, like every single one. For me, like, yeah, like I love the social commentary that he always adds in without being too heavy-handed in his movies. But the thing that I love most about Black Panther 1 and Black Panther 2 is the duality of both your protagonist and your antagonist. I haven't read, I'm not a deep comic book reader. I have read, I've read all the Black Panther, I read the Reggie Hudlin run Black Panther, and I read most of the Ta-Nehisi Coates one. So I'm familiar with the Namor story. And Namor is not portrayed anywhere close to the way he is in the movie as he is in the comics. In the comics, all we get is this raging, villain, and you don't get you get somewhat of a backstory, not the one that I remember, but it's the comics want you to know that Namor is a villain more than it wants you to know that he is a person with purpose, right? Or he is a creature, or man, whatever, with purpose. And I love how Ryan brings that out of the antagonist, right? Like, we can't really call them super villains. We can say they're doing villainous things, but we can't just definitively say that all these people are villains, right? But they're definitely antagonists. And Ryan, he adds a level of humanity to his antagonist and his protagonist, and that's something that we don't get in superhero movies, right? Not to this degree, where Shuri, like, we get to see her grapple with, like, being consumed by this grief and being consumed by revenge, but it never comes off in a way to where you're, like, against her on it. He's like, no, I actually can get it. I understand. Like, I'm going through the same grief. I feel the same grief, and I understand your need for revenge. Like, I get it, even though this may not be the best thing for you, spiritually or whatever. So I start by giving Ryan Coogler his flowers. The next flowers go to like the cast as a whole. This also goes back to Ryan, but he fleshed out so many of the characters from Black Panther 1 to have more of a impact on the story. M'Baku, just everybody, like Okoye, Dania Guerrero's performance was masterful. Like, when she gets stripped of her rank, oh my God, if you don't feel that, you don't feel anything. We may have to dedicate a special section to Lupita this podcast. But like just her like the performance, like Lupita's very great at emoting with her face, and she uses that so much. And then Angela Bassett was just on a different level. She was the MVP of this movie, right? And again, that's fleshing out a character because she's obviously very important in Black Panther 1, but not nearly to the degree that she is now. Like she's a central figure, central character, and you need a character, you need an actress who can rise to that occasion because Black Panther is being done on such a large scale. It's like putting you like you're the main feature on a Kendrick song, you know, on a Kendrick single. Like I need somebody who's going to match that energy of the moment, and Angela Bassett is bigger than the moment, and she showed that. Like she was overqualified to be Ramonda, and that's what she showed. The last thing I want to say again goes back to just Ryan Coogler and Marvel as a whole, but they did what I thought could have been the impossible, which is continuing to make the Black Panther character not just relevant but central, right? And the way that they tell like this larger global story, and places the Black Panther, places Wakanda in the center of that or near the center of that, keeps Black Panther relevant, and I would argue in some ways more relevant. Not, I wouldn't say more relevant, but with the moment that we are as a society and the way we need to see women portrayed as like the ultimate powerful figures, it at least places it in the same relevancy as it would be with Chadwick still manning that post. So I didn't give it 10 out of 10 because I'm cynical and I barely give anything a 10 out of 10, but like it's high. It's like 9.6. And I think it's better than Black Panther 1 the more I think about it. So
I think too, I think another thing we need to keep in mind as well, Ryan Coogler does a great job of adding context to characters that's not really prevalent in the comic books. So like Black Panther's parents are dead. They're not alive at all. Like they've been dead for a while. So to bring the Queen's character to the forefront of this movie, and she, her becomes a pivotal character in this movie speaks volumes. That's just not, you don't see that in the comic books. So shout out to Ryan Coogler for that as well.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely awesome, and I mean this was a tough task, obviously, with having a script that included Chadwick Boseman, then having to redo it, and maybe having to redo it again for other reasons. Yeah, Ryan Coogler is excellent at this. I'm sure he'll be a part of Black Panther 3, and obviously he's got that Wakanda series, which I believe is still in the works for Disney Plus. Haven't heard anything on lately, but I'm sure after this movie's results at the box office, it'll be coming to us in a few years. My take on the movie overall is a little bit different than everybody else's. Like Frank, I went into this movie, I had really high expectations because it's the final film of Phase 4. And, Phase 4 has not been the best phase. I mean, I've liked most of the movies, but even I can agree that it's, been kind of hit or miss, and probably more miss than hit. I thought this movie had a lot of stuff to like, and we've already touched on a ton of it. The cast it was exceptional cast. I mean, you can definitely feel how they kind of came together to kind of fill the void of the loss of Chadwick Boseman. I think ultimately for me, this was a good movie. It's not great, and I think there's one reason for that, and for me, it's the way they explained how they got rid of Chadwick Boseman's character, T'Challa, right? Going to this movie, my biggest question was, how are they going to explain this that's like satisfying, that gets us to the next step, right? Who's the next person to take on the mantle? And having him die from an undisclosed illness, while, it kind of paralleled what happened to Chadwick Boseman, although, we found out he did die of colon cancer. And maybe that's part of it. They wanted to keep it on that same kind of level. I don't know, but to me, like that was just for a superhero to die off screen because of an illness. To me, that just didn't work. There should have been something. You're coming off the last time we saw him was Endgame. He, triumphantly returns with the snap and helps Captain America and everybody take down Thanos. And then we're just led to believe that he has some kind of illness and he dies like 4 or 5 years later or 6 years. the timelines are messed up because of all the time travel in Endgame. But and honestly, I don't have it, and I've thought about this a lot because that's been my major problem with the movie. I don't have a good alternative for what they could have done. There are people that are far more talented and better at this than I am, but I don't know. Like I wish there would have been something like a reference to something that happened in the blip or some kind of Thanos related thing or something else, some other character that he encountered, or maybe we see, a stunt double in a Black Panther costume and there's some kind of battle that happens. And I don't know. I just wish there was something more than how the movie opened. Now, the the opening, I mean, I say the opening, the part where they showed the Marvel Studios symbol, the logo, and they did like the Chadwick Boseman images and stuff. That was excellent. That was an awesome start to the movie. But then the first scene where we start out where he's in bad shape and they're trying to figure out how to save him. I just like to me that was not a good start. The movie definitely got better from there in my opinion, but it's still to me that was such a huge part of this movie and it just didn't work for me. What are y'all's thoughts on that part of the film? Brittany, I'll go to you first.
Well, before I answer that question, Justin, I just want to give a shout out to those in the live chat. We've got Nick from all the way in the UK, Walking with the Woods. Appreciate you being here. He told me offline that he hadn't seen the movie, but appreciate you being here. Hopefully,
we're spoiling it, Nick. We're sorry, but we're spoiling it. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, not sorry. We also have Yesenia, a longtime fan of the Watchers. Appreciate you being here as well. Love to hear your thoughts. And then Trisha, aka the Texas Potterhead, who says that she thought it was nice that they didn't really explain his death over other than an illness. And there's parts of me where I definitely, Justin, I see where you're coming from. You kind of want that explanation because we don't like having to live in limbo. We want to have that closure, which I'm a like huge. I need to have closure in order to move on. Like that's just who I am as a person. However, I think with respect to Chadwick, because that was something so personal for him, and he didn't want that to interfere with his career and his life, what he had left of it. I think it was just a nice nod to kind of honor him in a way. And Frank, I'm going to ask you because I think you've mentioned this before that there is a storyline in the comics where T'Challa does die or is incapacitated for a period of time due to an illness, or maybe it's cancer, maybe it isn't. I really don't remember, but I would have thought that that's kind of where they would pull that storyline of what we saw in the opening of this movie.
Yeah, one of the storylines, he's in intermittent suspension. He has an illness, and Letitia Wright, well, not Letitia Wright, but Shuri takes over the mantle while he's in intermittent suspension. That's the only one I know of. There's another story where he actually dies. I haven't read that comic book, but to go back to what Justin said, man, I have no qualms with how they handle it because main leads don't die every day, especially while in the production of making a movie.
Yeah.
So I don't know how else they could have done it without being insensitive to the Boseman family, and I think how they left it ambiguous like that was, in my opinion, tasteful. It was done tastefully because to like give him a death on screen or a CG or a copycat version takes away from, I think, Boseman, the actor himself. So I think him dying off screen of an illness and focusing on that and having the kingdom rule off of that, I thought was good in his way. I think Coogler and Feige and those guys were trying to find ways to like do it tastefully to where you're not reliving again him dying on screen after he died in real life. I think that would have been kind of, I think social media would have had an outrage.
Yeah, I don't mean like we have a comment here saying like what they did with Princess Leia. I don't mean that. I don't mean I don't like Luke Scott. We don't want to see like his face on like another person's body. I'm just saying like someone in the mask, in the costume, it doesn't even have to be that. It could be just some explanation of something that happened from the blip or something happened in some other kind of battle or now granted, they handled it tastefully and they made that work with the storyline to explain. I mean, the storyline for the movie makes sense. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. Just for me, like I've talked about this before, you know, for a certain audience, definitely Black Panther, like was, you know, that's a cultural like time, you know, it's a time in a culture that people are never going to forget. And it's this character brought to the silver screen that people didn't think would ever get a movie. And my thing is like, you know, like when I was a kid, like Christopher Reeve was Superman. And even now when I think of Superman, I think of him, you know, even though he's been dead for many years and he hadn't played Superman since like 1988 or something. But like Superman was such a big success, right? The first movie out the gate, Superman the movie was, and unfortunately, I believe that had Christopher Reeve died in 1980 or something before they made Superman 2, they would have found someone else to play Superman and they would have kept it going, right? And I think with the Chadwick Boseman passing, it was obviously very sad. I mean, it was a stunner for all of us. I remember when it happened, Brittany's the one that told, you know, I think that's how we found out, me and Frank for sure. It was on our text chain or whatever. But I do think that, like, you know, they made the decision not to recast and they made it work. And I mean, Coogler did a great job with it. And, you know, Marvel does everything like first class. I don't know. I wish that we would have gotten something better than undisclosed.
You basically, you want closure. That's kind of what I'm getting out of this.
Yeah,
you wanted like a definite on-screen closure. Like you wanted
or some kind of a story to explain it better than he had some kind of illness and they're going to use the flower that he already used to get the power of the Black Panther. That's going to be the way to, like, Shuri's trying to find a way to use the flower to, you know, save him or whatever. I mean, they made it work. I just wish it was something better.
I want to hear Tristan's thoughts on this.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to offer like a counter.
Okay.
So Tristan, please.
My counter is I wanted, like everyone else, to move past the death as well. Like it would have crushed me to see or to have to really grapple even more so with Chadwick's death, on a sense to Child's death as well. If it had been done, I have no problems with it being done the way it was done. I also don't really have any issue if somebody wanted more, like Justin does. The thing that I wanted was to see, like, Black Panther is not just Black Panther in Wakanda. He's a big deal globally, and I would have loved to see the global response to his death. And like this is a fucking Avenger dying.
Yeah,
like,
the Avenger response also, like, exactly. Yeah.
Like I need to see that. That's a big plot hole. Like they could have, they should have, not even could have. They should have found a way to involve the rest of the world and the Avengers in this, and not just understand. The Black Panther story in so many ways is an insulated one. Like most of the fighting happens in Wakanda. Most of the story happens in Wakanda for both movies. But again, this is a man who helped save the world. Like, no, we're going to mourn him in the same way that we see Tony Stark mourn. So that's a big hole. And I placed the blame on that on Fahey for not showing like the proper respect for Black Panther, for T'Challa.
But would that have taken away from the story that is this movie? To put,
he died. Like I
understand. I'm just saying, like, if we got the reactions from the Avengers, from the rest of the world, I mean, okay, maybe not so much the rest of the world, but specifically the Avengers, would that have taken away from keeping the focus on the family that is the Queen and Shuri?
Well, I don't need the Avengers to like be central figures in the story. I just want, like, it could be a very quick montage of just people around the world, you know, showing their respect. That's what I want. Like, it didn't have to be anything more than that. So,
or a visual of the Avengers in front of, you know, the manor, you know.
Yeah, like a mural, like all these murals. They just show the murals around the world. Like they could have been, that takes 15 seconds. You know what I'm saying? So that's something I would have loved to see, or something that we should have seen, honestly. But maybe we'll see it in, you know, Phase 5, and you know, like we get like these Tony Stark shots in Spider-Man, every, you know, Doctor Strange every once in a while. So maybe, but.
So my counter that I'm going to offer, and I apologize in advance. Oh my God, I'm going to start getting emotional right now. I'm okay. Thug tears, all right? Thug tears. So having dealt with the loss of someone personal in my family from cancer, you know it was coming. It still doesn't stop the hurt, but I think to make Shuri's character arc a lot more believable, relatable, and understanding her anger and feeling that I was not able to save my brother because of this unknown illness, because sometimes that really does happen in the real world. There's sometimes mysterious things that happen within the body and you don't have that explanation, you don't have that closure, and that's what really sets into all the loved ones around you, that you just can't get past that because you don't have that closure. And I think that kind of helps with Shuri's character arc of feeling more vengeful or seeking revenge than anything, because she, as one of the most brilliant people in Wakanda, using her science and lab and things like that, she couldn't save her brother and she can't handle that, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think maybe that was also done purposefully, one, to honor Chadwick because he kept that part of his life so private,
Right.
much like T'Challa, especially with Nakia saying, you know, we knew what was going to happen and we dealt with it the way that we wanted to. But I think that also just adds fuel for Shuri's character arc.
Yeah, I think that they put a lot of thought in this. Like, I'm not criticizing for that. I just I like Tristan said, he was such a hero. Like, to me, you needed to have you know, he did deserve the kind of thing that like Tony Stark got. And a lot of it is because of right now the Avengers are kind of in limbo. That's part of it. Also, in the world when they filmed this movie, COVID was still a huge thing. That probably kept more people. I mean, maybe they want to do a bigger thing, and maybe they will do a bigger thing. I do think that with all these Marvel movies, because it's this big continuity and it keeps going, there, these movies. I think this movie, like, it's not my favorite Marvel movie by far, but I do think this movie will age well because all the threads in this movie will get spun out in whether it's Ironheart or other storylines, Thunderbolts. I mean, this movie sets up a lot. It's, to me, like, I felt the length of the movie because it just feels like it's kind of overstuffed, but I mean, like, it had a lot to accomplish. So I understand that. So I kind of took us on a negative start here, but I want to.
Damn you, Justin.
Yeah, I want to get something. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff I liked about this movie, and I want to get to probably my favorite thing in the movie was the Michael B. Jordan cameo, Killmonger's kind of return. I thought that was awesome. I think it's one of the best cameos in any of in the whole the MCU, as a whole. And immediately, I was very excited. I was like, "Are they going to bring this guy back? Is he going to be like a Black Panther also, or something?" Like, what were y'all's feelings when you saw that in the theater? Because, like, they showed, he's in the ancestral plane, and when Shuri becomes the Black Panther, and she sees the back of the throne, and you're thinking, like, okay, there's somebody sitting there. Who is sitting there? And I honestly had no idea because I knew they weren't going to do like a Chadwick thing. That would have been poor taste. I was surprised it was him. I mean, the reason for it, I understand, but that was an awesome moment. Brittany, what did you think about that?
Well, I'm going to share what Yesenia says. She said that surprised her.
Yeah.
Now, I was in a theater full of, it was packed, which is, I hate going on opening weekend because it's so packed, and then like people bring their kids. Why do y'all bring your little ones, people? Get a babysitter, okay? I don't want to hear them babbling during this movie, okay? It was a big movie. Also, don't bring kids to movies at all. Just don't. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, but there's lots of people, and you're hearing reactions, you're hearing silence at the appropriate times. And when Killmonger was back on the screen, I literally sat up in my chair and I'm like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Like, this was I loved Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger. I wish we got more of him. I wish they could somehow bring him back. However, I was like, fuck yes. Like, and it made complete sense as to why she chose him as visiting him in the ancestral planes, because there's that connection of anger and feeling the need for revenge, and you know, she's feeling all types of things, and to see him, it's kind of like it's reaffirming those feelings and what she needs to do and handle her business. I thought it was incredible. So I was really happy to see him, and just how like the swagger that he had. You know, he's just sitting on the throne, like, you know, what's up, you know, what's up, little cuz? And I don't know, it was great. Frank, what did you think about Killmonger being back on the screen?
You know what's funny, and like no bullshit, I called it. Like the minute the throne is being shown, I was like, watch it be Killmonger, because like they kind of hinted towards it throughout the whole movie. Like, I mean, Shuri just lost her brother, her best friend. You know what I'm saying? She's reeling. She's a cynic. She doesn't believe in the gods and in the rituals and all that. So throughout the movie, you're setting up for this moment with the anger that she's dealing with, to deal with the quintessential symbolism of anguish and vengefulness, which is Killmonger. So I wasn't surprised at all. I kind of, I don't know if you guys remember, in one of the House of Dragons podcasts, I was like, he's gonna show up in some form of fashion in this movie. So I thought it was perfect. It fit, the narrative fit, and her to come out of that at the breaking point of her wanting to kill Namor or Namor, how they call him, that breaking point.
Namor.
I can't remember my R's like that, but yes.
Neither can I. It's fine.
But that breaking point of like her wanting to kill Namor, and having her mother show up and getting that belief again in her ancestry and in her gods and how things are done on Wakanda, it was perfect. I mean, hell, Michael B. Jordan, man, that guy, he's becoming a true method actor. I watched an interview with Big Boy in the Neighborhood a few years ago when he did Killmonger in Black Panther 1, and he said he needed to go to therapy. Like he was in a dark place playing that role because of the anguish and vengefulness that Jadaka faced losing his father in that movie, and he had to channel that in for that role. And when I heard that interview, I was like, bruh, Michael B. Jordan's about to unlock some acting and Super Saiyan abilities that he has never unlocked before. And you saw it again, even though it was in a small snippet, you saw it again in that scene. And it's crazy because like when he died in Black Panther 1, he almost came to grips of like what I was doing was wrong, but then again, when he in Black Panther 2, he reversed right back to that vengefulness Killmonger of like not being unapologetic what he did in the first movie and so on and so forth. So I love the cameo, man. It was perfect. I mean,
you're saying Killmonger is Kyrie Irving. That's what you're saying.
Pretty much. But for every Ryan Coogler movie, he's been in it. So I was like, he's not gonna break this Ryan Coogler movie streak. He will be in this movie in some form of fashion.
I'm gonna equate Killmonger to that of Daemon Targaryen, and I am here to support all of his war crimes and not think anything of it. Tristan, your thoughts on Killmonger?
Well, I had what Frank said on the House of Dragon pod in my mind when she went to that and such. But when I forgot about it throughout the movie, honestly. So when she went to the ancestral plane, I thought it was going to be one of her parents, honestly. But once it showed, I mean, that's just a movie trope. Like if you see something from behind and the person thinks it's one person, then it's not going to be that person. So at that point, the only person it could have been was Killmonger. So I wasn't surprised. And I kind of like halfway guessed it once I saw her walking towards the front of the throne. But yeah, I just thought it was a great cameo. And I thought Killmonger was the perfect avatar. Like both of you said, for the grief and cynical nature that she was feeling, after losing so much. And Shuri is like, we have never really seen her. Well, we've never seen her despondent. We've never seen her, honestly, anything other than like, not happy-go-lucky, but like positive and motivational. Like, I'm just going, like, this is one of the most brilliant people on planet Earth. And she's just been so focused on that. So seeing her with like the anger, it was a big dramatic shift, and Killmonger was like I said, a perfect symbol of that dramatic shift. And it could only be such a big figure, a big character like Killmonger to bring that out. So I thought it was excellent.
Yeah, he was great. And if y'all remember, one of the best What If episodes was the one, with Michael B. Jordan reprising his role as Killmonger. I feel like they'll find a way to bring him back in some way, Secret Wars or something.
Multiverse.
I think he's one of their favorites, Marvel, and I think they'll find a way to.
I need him back. I was upset that they killed him off in Black Panther.
Me too, Frank.
That could have been a really a Magneto, Professor X comparison or ongoing conflict in future movies to come.
Right, kind of a rivalry. Yeah.
And what's crazy, I think in the I may have this wrong, but in the Coates version, Namor is dead and Killmonger is still alive. I could have that backwards.
Namor is dead. It's crazy how they do Namor, because in some adaptations he's an anti-hero. In other adaptations he's a power-hungry evil villain. So it's very different. One question I do have with you guys. How pleased with you guys with Namor's origin story in this movie?
Mi gente.
Because like we know in the comic books he's Atlantean, and like I think his mother is like a Atlantean princess,
yeah,
captain, and it's kind of like an Aquaman in a way.
Right.
Aquaman story ripped off of the.
But he came before Aquaman, so that's what's he's an old character.
Yeah. I think it was 1939 or 38. So
right.
36.
Was it 36? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I love the adaptation that they infuse with the Mayan Yucatan culture for this character, and like totally take and I think the reason why Ryan Coogler did this, because just 3 years ago you had Aquaman, you had Atlantis, you had this same story, even though Marvel came with it first. So to remix it and create, Tolakan, this kingdom under the sea, and Kukulkan, this the serpent god, like that took a lot of research. Like, think about this, to infuse Mayan culture into a Marvel superhero that's never been done before, and this magnitude in such a short time span.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty incredible.
So, if I may speak on this subject.
Go for it.
So, with my cultural background, it's mostly indigenous Mexican, meaning or indigenous Americas. My family predominantly is from Mexico. My ancestors are the Aztecs. Okay. So a lot of the storyline, even though it's set in like Yucatan Peninsula, which is predominantly like Mayan, culture, that kind of thing, a lot of the actual story, the city itself, is coming from Aztec legends. Okay. Aztec stories. So for me personally, being Hispanic, having the Aztec background, it's really refreshing to see, especially when you're talking this franchise that is the MCU. Like for me, I kind of got an inkling of what it felt like for everyone who was looking to see a Black superhero come to the screen, and that's Black Panther, right? For me, granted, Namor is a little bit of the enemy here. For me, it was really cool to see, just because of the cultural and historical backgrounds behind it, and to cast an actor who is actually Mexican but has the Aztec background. Okay, Tenoch Huerta Mejia, beautiful casting. You actually have a brown actor to portray this character, which I loved. And then
Tom Cruise playing Namor? Get the fuck out of here! Are you serious?
Who said that?
Listen,
no, dude, all these movies, man, like get whitewashed. Like,
this is true.
Oh, but that wasn't ever a rumor, because he was going to play Iron Man like years ago. Okay. That's a joke. Yeah.
Samurai was like play like Matt Damon or Brad Pitt or somebody like that.
Yeah, there's actually someone that he's a white skinned actor. He does have it's James Franco. He's going to play Fidel Castro, and I'm like, do we not have like Cuban actors out here? Okay, that's a different topic for a different pod. Let's
Yeah,
get back to Tenoch Huerta Mejia. Okay,
Yep.
for me, and seeing this storyline come into the forefront about the surface world, and then them having the connections, much like the Wakandans with the vibranium plant, that they're two sides of the same coin, right? They're nations that they kept under wraps. They didn't want the world to know about them. But when Namor comes back to the surface world to bury his mother as a child, I say child because he ages differently, and he sees that his mother's homeland has been colonized. And I think a lot of people forget that Mexico, Central America, a lot of Latin America was also colonized by the Europeans, So aside from me having indigenous American / Mexican Aztec background, I also have a good majority of Spanish blood in me because of that colonization. And let me just put it out there. The Aztecs were brutal people, all right, sacrificing their own people, enslaving their own people. Like they did some shit to themselves, right? But when you have, the conquistadors coming and taking everything and pinning them against one another, that's a whole other level, okay? You're having an outsider come in and tell you what's what. So what I really loved about Namor's storyline and origin, for one, they did a brilliant job with his origin, but I think just bringing to the forefront about the colonization that my people also experienced, if you will, right? And he had a reason. This is why I think, Justin, we've talked about this too, about Killmonger being one of the best villains, is because in their own mind, they're the
They
hero.
believe they're the hero. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
the best.
And I think
yeah.
with Namor, it's the
Right.
same kind of idea, that he thinks he's the hero because he wants to protect his people.
Right. And in some ways he kind of is, like at the end of the movie you see his what is it his sister or Namora?
She's a cousin, I
Oh,
think. I think she's like a
Okay.
cousin to him. Yeah.
Yeah, because
She's
she's disappointed. Okay.
Yeah.
She's disappointed that, he didn't, kill the Black Panther or whatever. And it's like he was like, hey, like Wakanda needs us now. And because the world's gonna be against Wakanda now. So yeah, I thought the storyline for all of that with the way they use vibranium as like this precious resource that these were the only two nations that had. I thought that was really well done. And that's something, honestly, like that's something that would happen and has happened in our world. Like we don't have vibranium, but like, precious resources are a reason for countries to go to war. That happens. This actor, I wasn't familiar with this actor. In fact, in the credits, I don't know if you'll notice this, but it said introducing, and his name's Tenoch Huerta, or is it Tenoch? I've heard both pronunciations.
I've heard both, but I
Yeah.
mean, you could say Tenoch Huerta
Yeah.
Mejia. He's also just known as Tenoch Huerta.
Yeah.
Like I said, he's a Mexican actor. He's from the capital. He's got Aztec background. There's another indigenous background that I cannot pronounce. I'm not even attempt to pronounce, but he's very well rooted in Mexico. He's been an actor for some time, just in
But
Latin
this
America.
is his first big debut, and what a debut.
Hollywood, yeah.
He
He
definitely
was
killed it. Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, he was great.
Absolutely. Okay, and Trisha here says that he pronounces his name with a hard ch.
Tenoch. Okay.
Tenoch.
Okay.
I hope he's an Avenger. I hope he's an Avenger, because in the comic books he's an Avenger. Well, he's an Avenger. He's a West Coast Avenger.
Well, I imagine we're gonna see him again. If not in Black Panther 3, we're gonna see him at some other point, because they wouldn't have left the cliffhanger the way that they did.
Yeah.
With the ally. I'm sorry, with the alliance with Wakanda, and then he's actually painting it on the wall in the very Mesoamerican way of artwork and telling history. So yeah, this isn't the last we're going to see of him, and I'm so excited about that.
That character plays a pivotal role too in Illuminati. I mean, Doctor Strange, but
and the Fantastic Four also, right?
Yeah, like he T'Challa, Doctor Doom, and Mr. Fantastic are part of the Illuminati. So
yeah,
that could still be in play. I don't know. I mean, Multiverse of Madness pretty much fucked that up for me. But that was a major. That's a major team, a major conglomerate. the word response in intergalactic threat. So I hope that's still in play because that actor, man, he killed it. One of my favorite references in the movie is when M'Baku is talking about the history of Kukulkan. He's like
they regard him as a god. Kukulkan.
God, like it's like, bro, like
That's pretty good, Frank. That's pretty good.
And those names are hard to pronounce. The dialect is difficult to pronounce, like all of it. It's such an ancient language. And yeah, you're right. I made that in my notes too about M'Baku. M'Baku has some great one-liners here. Referring to Okoye as a bald-headed demon. I'm like, this motherfucker right here.
But Winston Duke, to be of Caribbean background, to be able to hit that African enunciation of how he said that was so on point. I was like, dude, you are a stowaway dark horse MVP.
Yeah, but him saying he's like, we read, we read books, like we're not idiots. Yeah, fantastic. Tristan, what are your thoughts on Namor and bringing to light this cultural background of his?
Namor was outside of Lupita, probably my favorite part of the movie. He was amazing. And I instantly started thinking, like, where can I rank him in MCU villains or antagonists? Because he was amazing. I mean, the backstory for everything that Brittany just said, this goes back to Ryan Coogler and like the care that he places in these cultures. Like, I think he and his staff they work really hard not to get these things wrong and not to minimize, not to whitewash, not to. Like they really, really, really work hard at getting these things as accurate as possible. And whether it's, African culture, whether it's Mesoamerican, whatever, like I feel the pride in it. Like I just love learning about other people's cultures, but like seeing it play out in so many different ways in these movies, it just made me appreciate like Marvel and Ryan Coogler even more. Namor was an excellent character. Like I was afraid of him, but he was so charming at the same time. Like, oh my God,
yes.
Take me to dinner first. Like, good Lord.
Exactly. And real quick, Tristan, you mentioned about Lupita, and a lot of people actually don't realize this about Lupita Nyong'o. Like, yes, she's African, but she was born in Mexico and lived in Mexico for a long period of time. So when she spoke Spanish, like that's because she really can speak Spanish. And we've seen her speak, I think it was Korean in the first movie, and then she was also attempting to speak the Talocan kind of language in this movie as well. But for me, it just brought so much joy in me to see her actually speaking Spanish because she grew up speaking that in Mexico. So it's really cool. Like she's also mi gente. Like, she's one of us.
And this is also a good time to mention, like, Lupita's an actual genius and it can do anything. She can speak anything, honestly.
Yeah.
That's Yale, I think, or Prince, one of them. Yeah, that's Ivy League Lupita.
Beauty, brains,
everything.
Let's go, girl.
Good Lord. Especially
Lupita. That shit my shit went up 6 inches. My popcorn went up.
Oh my God. And she has an Oscar. So good
she
for
is
her.
Accomplished at every level. But Namor, like, excellent character. The cultural stuff only added to the weight that his character had. And again, when he was on screen, like, I feared him. Like, no, this is he was charming, but he also was like, hey, this is somebody who's not here to fuck around. Yeah. He is high on the fuck around and find out scale. So, like everything he said, I felt like he meant it. When he said, hey, I'll be back here in a week and I'm bringing up my entire army, I feel like he meant every single word of that. And
listen, when he said Imperius Rex, which in Latin it translates to Empire King or King Empire, one of the two. I always get Latin reversed. But when he said that, which I know is a call to the comics, but when he said that, I was like, oh, he means business. Like like Tristan said, he's on another level of come fuck around and find out. I love Namor. I'm actually going to put him up there with Killmonger as well. Just again,
really
with that sense of what makes him a great villain is because he thinks he's the hero in his own story.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, he was, honestly,
Yeah.
to his people, he was.
And again, my
right.
only frame of reference from him is references made in the comics that I've read. Like I've never actually seen him, I don't think, in the comics. But the way he's talked about, like by the people of Wakanda in the Coats run, is like, yeah, they talk about him like he's Satan. It's like he came in and drowned the entire Wakanda, like from everywhere. Like they had to rebuild Wakanda.
And killed hundreds of thousands of people while doing that. Like,
Yeah.
he murdered a lot of people in Wakanda.
Yeah.
And even though Namor like refers to himself as a mutant, and he goes into talking about how he got the pointed ears and the feathers on his heels and things like that, he does refer to himself as a mutant, which is actually finally great to hear in the MCU.
The second mutant reference down the MCU. Miss
It
Marvel
is.
was the first. Yeah.
Right. So it's great for the main character or that character to say it himself, but he's revered as a god. As Frank had earlier mentioned, that as a serpent god. And so the idea that he possesses these powers, his people also possesses super strength or fighting abilities, whatever. And for him to be able to not only fight in the air and on land and in the sea, like, y'all are fucked. Come across this guy, y'all are fucked.
So moving on to the next thing. So, I've said this a lot. Phase 4 is both a rebuilding phase and an expansion phase at the same time. And I think this movie is a very transitional movie. You're introducing a lot of new characters, you're introducing a new world, but you're also, changing the mantle of moving the mantle from one person to the next. What did y'all think of Shuri, Letitia Wright in this movie? Her journey to become Black Panther. What do you think about her in the suit, her fighting style, her fight with Namor at the end? Let's talk about Black Panther now. Brittany, what do you think about Shuri as Black Panther?
I said it when we did our tribute to Chadwick Boseman shortly after we learned of his passing, that I was hoping that the mantle would pass on to Shuri. Now, we did see the struggle, the internal struggle of coping with grief, trying not to like lose her mind, and then she loses her mother a year after her brother's death, and so she's losing a lot in a short amount of time, not to mention that of her father. But this kind of sense of everything falls on me to either become the next leader or to synthesize the heart-shaped herb to create the Black Panther. She's dealing with a lot, and that's a lot for any one person to deal with. I'm okay with her character arc, seeing like the highs and lows, because she does have some highs, like when she gets to go to Cambridge with Okoye to locate this scientist that Namor has deemed, hey, I need to kill this scientist, and we'll touch on that later. But the fact that for the most part she's struggling with her grief and this sense of revenge, when she finally comes to terms with taking on the mantle of the Black Panther, the suit looks great. I definitely noticed the touch of gold that was very, very much like that of Killmonger. It's like, okay, so we're channeling our inner Killmonger, cool. But then the fact that for someone who really doesn't regard tradition and belief in the gods and everything that's ritual for them, she has like the ceremonial dots on her Black Panther mask. And so it was, for me, it's like, she's really struggling with identity, I guess you could say. And I loved how that was displayed, both by her own character and then the suit itself. She can move. I mean, let's face it. I like that she could use her little sonic boomer things. I don't know what you call them. And when she's outsmarting Namor, to absorb the oxygen from his skin, like, because that's how they figured, he gets the oxygen not only from the air, but also from the sea or from water, and kind of beating him at his own game. It was really cool. My only criticism with giving so much grief to her and kind of positioning her to maybe be the next leader is that a lot of people, like just throughout history, okay, you go all the way back to founding nations and questioning whether or not a woman is fit to be a ruler, because they'll say they act on emotion as opposed to actually being intelligent or being analytical and things like that. And so I kind of drew some issue with really putting a lot on the emotion side of things for her, and she's not acting rash, or she's, what I'm trying to say, she's not thinking rational like, and so I kind of I drew some issue with that a little bit. But overall, I was content with her character arc and just accepting that, okay, maybe I'm not fit to be the ruler, but I'm going to take on the responsibility as Black Panther, because you don't have to be both. Because think of King T'Chaka, right? That's T'Challa's father, right?
Mm-hmm.
His father was king, but T'Challa was the Black Panther. So you don't have to be both ruler and Black Panther at the same time. You can do one or both.
Frank,
I actually thought a lot
go ahead,
of.
Tristan. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I actually thought Shuri, or at least the film, did a good job of making her seem pretty rational. Like I think we understand that grief mixed with revenge is irrational as a solid concept. But what we're seeing is her in the moment watching her mother die, or watching her mother drown. We're seeing her trying to find a cure for her brother at the last minute. We see her in so many moments where logic simply just does not live. Like there's no room for logic in those moments. But it's also showing, the film is also doing a good job of showing you why, the spiritual center of Shuri, the people around her are trying to lead her away from that vengeance. So it's the duality. Like I said, as far as Shuri being Black Panther, I mean, obviously there's textual background to support that. But I mean, just Shuri as a character is like highly qualified to be that. What I would have loved to see is also, I mean, we see Black Panther 1, her in a little bit of combat. What I would love to see was like, and maybe they could have done this in Black Panther 1, but I don't know how you can even anticipate this. But like, I want to see her like training. Like, how do we know where does her fighting style come from? Like, did T'Challa train her? Did she work with a trainer like in between, fucking curing cancer or whatever the fuck she does in the lab? Like, that's something I would have loved to see. But Shuri is remarkably qualified. T'Challa, like the thing that makes Black Panther is not just how great he is in combat. This is one of the smartest men on planet Earth. Just complete brilliance, genius.
Yeah, I think he's like the
prodigy.
third smartest person in the world, or something along those lines.
It's like Tony, Frank, Mr. Fantastic, Kim. Shuri's up top.
Shuri's in the top 5. She's in the 99th percentile of smartest people on planet Earth.
Yeah.
Wakanda Forever has 2 in the top 5. That's pretty good.
Right.
I think where I kind of, this is going back to what I was saying briefly about making decisions based on emotion and revenge, is when she's telling M'Baku after she dons the suit and clears out the room, and she's basically telling him like, you will help me take down Namor. It's like, you don't have a choice. Like, she's not queen yet, but she's not giving people a choice. And so that's kind of where I drew my conclusion of when you're acting on emotion, like that's where things can go sideways. Like,
and I totally agree. Like, that is her acting on emotion. I mean, she's damn near in tears as she says it. This is also a few hours or so after her mother died. Like, so again, we're seeing her grow as a leader, because that's a growth moment, right? Right before the light goes off is usually when you're at your most emotional, right? Or when you're at your lowest peak. So we're seeing the growth of a leader, of somebody who never expected to be a leader, right? So I love her as Black Panther. Man, she's gonna have to bulk up a little bit like that. So, like, hey, Okoye is Black Panther, totally get it. But you know, I love just.
Listen, we need to talk about the Dora Milaje at some point too. Okay.
No, we need to have a pod dedicated to the Dora Milaje.
I'm okay with that too. I'm okay with that.
But yeah, I mean, Letitia Wright, this is a big moment. Can't be out here spreading COVID rumors no more. You're the Black Panther, love. Like this is it's time to step up. You're a superstar.
Oh my God, you made me almost spit out my drink.
Like you are a superstar now. Like we can't do dumb shit like that. But just Shuri in general, I love that. I love having a woman as Black Panther. I think it's amazing. I can't wait to see what they do with it going forward.
Frank, what are your thoughts on Shuri as Black Panther?
Man, how can I put it into words, man? I think just a fictional historical context. Like, I wish it was more celebrated that she's the first female Black Panther. Like, since the discovery of Bashinga, finding the vibranium on the mount of vibranium, she's the first ever. Like, I wish that was more.
By the way, real quick, it took me my second watch. They kept saying Bashinga, and I'm like, okay, I know Bashinga. And I'm like, oh, Bass.
Yeah.
It took this. Yeah, it took the second viewer.
Yeah, but like for her to take on that mantle, the first female Black Panther, it's in this. I mean, you're talking about like thousands of years of like the Black Panther mantle. I thought was huge. As far as Letitia goes, man, it takes very, very, very. That's a challenge to take on that role, given everything that happened, losing Chadwick. I mean, there was no plans for her becoming Black Panther. So to take on that role and to encapsulate that role of Black Panther in her own right, I thought was very elite in its own. But like Tristan said, she gonna have to bulk up a little bit. Like, I don't know if she's a vegan or something, but like she gonna have to like do some like eat some more.
She's tiny.
It looks like she lost.
You can like break her like a twig.
Yeah, it looks like she lost weight from the first Black Panther. But Brittany, to answer your question about the emotional state of what she went through, I don't think they're different from any male rulers. If you look at history, like Alexander the Great, Napoleon invaded Eastern Europe like 5 times after failing the first 4 times. Like this is.
But that's little man syndrome, okay? Like that's different. Like,
but I think every ruler has had that copes of like of being emotional and letting the emotional state take over their intellect of what they're doing. I don't think it's just a woman thing. You know?
Well, I'm looking at, you know, when Henry VIII died, and then it went to his firstborn from his first marriage, Queen Mary, then it went to Elizabeth, and like people are always saying like women cannot rule, and it's fictional, but look at House of the Dragon. I mean, they don't want Rhaenyra on the throne because
men have done a bang up job of ruling as well. I don't think.
Good answer. Good answer.
Also, look at America. Yeah, you know.
One more thing on Letitia. I think. Damn, I just lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Oh no, Shuri. Shuri was positioned to have an iconic run just as Shuri, just as like sister to Black Panther. Like she was such an iconic character in the first one. So like you could tell like this was never supposed to happen. Like she was going to be a legend in this regardless, and now like she makes history, like literally makes history. So I love it.
Yeah, I mean. Certain characters, you never know when certain characters are gonna pop on screen, and her character suddenly popped on screen, like her and Baku, like some of these characters that are characters in the comic books, pivotal characters, but they added flavor to these characters in this movie series, and so to like Tristan said, to like go from that to pivot from that to not being the forefront of Black Panther till young Prince T'Challa takes his throne eventually one day. I thought she did a great job. I mean, battling the emotional state of what she was going through, losing her brother, losing her mother a year later. You know, the acting it takes, the chops that it takes to encapsulate that on film. I had no doubt that she couldn't do it. I knew she could, but to see it play out made me so emotional. Because there's no. for Black culture, you don't really have prominent female heroes on a big screen. I mean, throughout Marvel, you know, we've had a few female heroes like Storm and people like that, but don't have their own film, don't have their own series. So for her to, I know it's supposed to be Chadwick's series, but to her to step in now and look like to step in seamlessly, I can't wait to see what else. You know, she's making history. I hope Letitia understands what she's doing right now. How many little Black girls, how many girls in general are going to throw up the X and see a female Black lead leading a multi-billion-dollar film? This is incredible. And for it to make $300 million in 3 days, it's on its way to make at least 900 million, maybe $1 billion. We're not sure, but it gives me hope to see. Hopefully, that we can get more female minority leads as heroes. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
that's been a big part of Phase 4.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, Miss Marvel. You know, you've got you've in future. Yeah, She-Hulk. In future ones, you've got Ironheart. She'll be in Phase 5, and we'll talk about her in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, they're definitely coming to the forefront in the MCU.
On the subject of Letitia, you know, realizing the mantle that is now Black Panther, and you know, people are gonna be watching her every move and listening to everything she says. Even though we no longer have Queen Ramonda on the movie, I was gonna say on the show, Angela fucking Bassett in this movie, in her moment at the UN when she is stripping Okoye of her rank. Jesus Christmas, my God. I felt that in my very soul. Her performance, Angela Bassett, if you ever watch this, mwah, thank you for giving us such a brilliant performance. And if you don't get an Oscar nominee for this, there is no justice in the world. The world sucks. I mean, the world sucks as it is, but even more so. But I hope that Angela Bassett will continue to be a part of Letitia's life and continue to guide her and to kind of, you know, help her and things like that. Because she's a fucking legend. But in all seriousness, going back to the character Queen Ramonda walking into the UN, like owning the joint, and how, again, she's got some swag to her too, and how she sits and how her arms are out. And I'm like, oh, she's cut. Like, she will fuck up anyone too, right? And really challenging the United States and France about, listen, you guys are trying to find vibranium. You know, you're using this device to find vibranium in the ocean. And let me tell you, or not just that, but going to the outreach centers to try and acquire this vibranium from French mercenaries, and throwing it back to France was fantastic, because how France, you know, obviously colonized a lot of African countries as well, but then also Haiti, and throwing that back in their face. I'm like, Ryan Coogler, I see you. I see what you're doing, and it's fucking marvelous. I couldn't get over Angela Bassett's performance with the UN, but more so when she's stripping Okoye of her rank as general of the Dora Milaje, and she says, in one moment it was unfair when she said to Okoye, you know, you sided with Killmonger and all this happened. It's like, well, no, she swore allegiance to the throne and he ascended to the throne, so she therefore had to serve him even though she didn't want to. So I think that was kind of a cheap shot, but at the same time, Queen Ramonda was also acting on emotion. She didn't know where her daughter was, dead or alive, and blamed Okoye for losing her daughter to Namor. But still, that scene in itself, I felt it in my very core, and I'm like, damn, don't piss off Mama. We ain't doing that. Yeah, Tristan, Frank, your thoughts?
I mean, we can talk about that, the UN scene. We can talk about the stripping. Just Angela Bassett, just a tour de force. Let's talk about Angela Bassett and those gray dreads. Like, let's talk about that. This is all my MILF fantasies just came. Like the Lord, man, that woman will be fine forever. But as far as being cut, you saw what's love got to do with it. she
Yeah.
No,
not working out since then.
That was 30 years ago, bro.
He has not stopped working out. Like Angela
He
Bassett.
has not aged.
I follow
The woman-
Angela Bassett on Instagram, man. Angela
The
Bassett be in
woman
that gym, man.
is 64 years old. Jennifer Lopez, who?
Wow, she's
Like-
64.
That
Crazy.
woman will be fine.
Angela Bassett is 64 years old.
Wow.
She will be fine forever. She
don't need no work.
When
She
she's
don't need
dust.
no plastic surgery. She is blessed.
Good
Angela,
Lord.
you keep doing you, boo-boo, and keep blessing us in return. Okay?
But like I said, she was overqualified for that role. Angela Bassett is bigger than that role.
But in this movie, that it paid off having her, because if you think about these superhero movies, when you have like the mother character, whether it's Martha Wayne or Martha Kent or Jor-El's wife, I can't even think of her name right now. They never really do a whole lot besides just kind of stand there and look sad, So like in the first movie, she didn't have a ton to do. In this movie, trying to fill that void for Chadwick Boseman, like she definitely stepped up.
And that's where that's where the overqualification. Put it like this: like she was like a fourth option in Black Panther 1, right? And then everybody else got hurt. You know what I'm saying? And she's like, hey, look at me. I dropped 30, for 5 years straight back in from 2007 to 2012. Like, like this is something like, hey, I could just tap into this role and I can be the biggest person on screen at any given moment. And that's what we saw when she decided, hey, I'm going to tap into Angela Bassett and not just like this Marvel character. She was the biggest person on the screen. And like, again, she like legend doesn't give it justice. Like, again, I've been watching Angela Bassett since I was like 4, so I'm 37. So like she means so much to me as an actress. Because she just represents excellence at everything. Like every role I've seen her in has just been excellent. So, yeah, she deserves all the awards.
Frank, Angela Bassett.
I don't think words have been invented yet of how extraordinary this woman is. Like every movie, every scene that she's in, I feel like the world doesn't deserve her. Like we don't deserve her. And I don't know what Ryan Coogler said to get her to sign on for 2 movies. I don't know what he did, but to grace us with her presence for 2 movies and to really use her in this movie, given the circumstances, was nothing short of an acting clinic. Even the trailer, when you see like her pleading, like I've lost everything, what I like, I'm like, it looked like she's talking to the UN. She's talking to her own Imperial Guard, like to her general. You know what I'm saying? To that level of acting, so few human beings on this planet can channel that, and she does it effortlessly. You know what I'm saying? So, and having an actress of that caliber in a movie, you can easily swallow up other characters and easily swallow up the rest of the cast. So I think Ryan Coogler did a great job of like using her when you needed to use her, and not make sure she didn't overshadow everybody else. Because that kind of talent, it's kind of like the Patrick Mahomes effect. Like you have this talent and it's
intimidating,
and you rely on it, like
yeah.
passing attempts. Like you could have easily went 70 passing attempts for Angela Bassett in this movie, but you found a way to like drop dimes here and there to make sure that her acting prowess flow within the movie without swallowing up everybody else. And that UN scene, man, even though it's a fictional movie, touched so many political, social issues that we have going on in this world today. And to have this powerful Black woman of a nation that niggas can't fuck with, talk her shit and say, this is why we can't trust you motherfuckers with our resources. This is why. And to even have like the president of mind to not kill those infantrymen or those military men and bring him out to the UN floor and say, "This is your warning, motherfuckers. You do it one more time, we whopping the floor with y'all niggas." Like to have that grace, and have that gangster to still betray. Just because we lost our protector, don't mean we're weak. I felt that shit. Like I felt that scene. I felt like I was watching CNN. I really did. I felt like I was watching a C-SPAN special of the UN going in. Like it hit that like to write that scene and put it in this fictional movie, but it still hit socially and in real life. I mean, that was the perfect microphone. Have Angela Bassett in that scene, and that's just that scene. Like even like stripping Okoye, like was it a bit harsh? Yes, it was. I'll be the first to say that it was a bit harsh. You know what I'm saying? Okoye is a leader of is the general of the Imperial Guard of this powerful nation. But at the same time, if you're Okoye, if you volunteer taking the princess, you better not fuck up. You better bring it back. You better bring it back back home with a scratch on her body. And to lose her, I get that. But again, she was a perfect woman, perfect actress to put in that scene to counteract Danai's character as well. I mean, shit. She just what else can I say that hasn't been said? The motherfucker's cold. I mean, what did she say?
I've got some words, and it's pretty much I think what Ryan Coogler and the writers for this movie would have to say to us audience. Je vous en prie. You're welcome.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Damn, Brittany, you just stole this. No, you know,
Listen.
Frank mentioned something that I wanted to point out. You mentioned CNN a second ago. I don't know if anybody else noticed this, but you know, CNN's Anderson Cooper was in this movie, right? So now we've learned that Anderson Cooper is not only in the MCU, he's also in the DCU because he was in Batman vs Superman, also on TV, giving us the news. So
crossover,
yeah. So
no,
he could be the key to Marvel versus DC down the road.
Oh, I thought it was Martha.
Well, that too.
There was a Scott Lang. I don't know if y'all saw on the CNN headline.
Yeah,
there was a Scott Lang reference. I couldn't read the rest of it because
it basically was saying he was doing a book tour.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Whereas in one of the shows recently, they talked about his podcast. I can't remember what
it was
one
Miss
of the
Marvel.
Miss Marvel. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
okay,
he had a successful podcast. Trisha here in the chat, she wants our thoughts on the fights with Okoye and Atuma. And Atuma is the kind of maybe not second to Namor, but he's the other warrior that we see fight with
the blue
Okoye
guy on the bridge. Yeah.
Blue guy on the bridge, and I have some thoughts and feelings about that because
go ahead.
We need more. We need more. That's all I gotta say. We need more Okoye being Okoye. And
real quick,
go ahead.
I meant to pose. I was in the movie, and I meant to post this in the group chat. Actually,
you were in the movie? I'm just kidding.
No. On the list of unfuckwittable fighters in the MCU who are human.
Okay.
Where do you rank Okoye?
Yeah, she's got to be way up there. Yeah.
She's got to be like in the top 3.
She's, oh my word.
Wait. Answer that question one more time. Ask that question one more time.
Non-superhuman, non-mutant, whatever, non-vibranium. I know her weapons have vibranium, but unfuckwittable human, completely human fighters. Where does she rank?
She's up there with Hawkeye, Black Widow. Those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. They were like just human beings, right?
Her and Daredevil, man. 1 and 2. 1A, 1B.
It's her and Black Widow for me.
Yeah. You got Black Widow with Daredevil?
Oh, Daredevil too. Yeah.
Oh, Daredevil.
Yeah.
That's
my 3. That's my 3.
Combat. It might be Daredevil.
I'm going to Okoye. I'm going to Okoye 1.
Oh, I won't be mad at that because Okoye is. She's a motherfucker.
I'm going to Okoye. I have Daredevil 3rd. A very close 3rd to Black Widow. Black Widow used to be my favorite Avenger. you know that. Black Widow is cold. Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I think I'd have to rearrange my top 3. I use the same people as Tristan, but I'd have to rearrange them.
Because Daredevil, his senses are heightened, so like he can see, he can sense and feel punches before they even come. Like it's just.
I've also seen him get his ass whooped many a time.
But like him getting his ass whooped, that was more out of like frustration.
Okoye got her ass whooped too.
Yep, by a non. That's what it took.
I'm surprised the whale didn't come after her.
Shamu, yeah.
But also for Daredevil, like the ass whoopings he received were like from like 10 people at a time. Like when he fought the Hand, he's fighting like 12 ninjas, 12 immortal ninjas at one time. Like not many human beings can survive that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then him fighting Kingpin. I mean, Kingpin's a superhuman for the most part. Like that's, and he still won that fight. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, the guy has heightened senses, and he's just not. I don't know.
Also, Charlie Cox. Enough said.
No, it's a good question. We need to start like a fight pit with or a fight club with
we don't talk
non-superpowered. Yeah,
we don't talk about that. But going back to the Okoye Atuma fight scene, effing credible. Yesenia here says the sound mixing. I felt all of that fight, and Trisha says Okoye is a bad motherfucker. She's up there, number 1. Listen, when she got slammed into her own, was it her own spear or was it Atume's spear? Because they both fought with spears.
Atume put his spear into the ground, and then and then he like pulled Okoye into the spear and like separated her shoulder.
Good golly! Oh my god! I mean, the whole theater was like, "Ooh!" You know,
it was just like the Superman Doomsday thing in Batman vs Superman. It was similar. Honestly, it was like to use the I don't know. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Let's not talk about that. No, that fight sequence was incredible. This is obviously, of course, after Shuri and Okoye find Riri, and Riri's in her Ironheart suit trying to take out. Was she flying after Namor? Who was she? Oh, it was a droid. It was a drone. It was a drone that was had a missile on Shuri. And that fight thing. I mean, I need more single combat scenes of Okoye with everybody. I don't care who. I really don't care.
She'll be a big part of that Wakanda show. And when that Wakanda show happens, I'm sure she'll probably be the star.
Because now she's a civilian. She's a civilian now. Right. I don't think she will be. If she is reinstated, great. But like,
is she Midnight Angel now?
Midnight Angels. That's from the Coach run. That's when the Coach run. That's how I knew her as a Midnight Angel before I knew her as Dora Milaje because of the Ta-Nehisi Coates comic.
Gotcha. Yeah. Now, if I can comment really quick on the Midnight Angel suit, and this is at no means any disrespect to any cultural inspirations behind the suit, but why does the head or the helmet look like Predator? I'm over here like, they really done make her look like Predator. Why?
It looks the same way in the comic. Like it's at the very least,
and that's fine. And that's fine. Like I said, I don't know if there's any like cultural inspiration behind it. It wouldn't surprise me.
I have to find. Coates actually talked about the Midnight Angels in an interview. Okay. I have to find it, but he talked about the inspiration. I think he actually talked about the inspiration for it.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, but I'll try to find that. I'll put that in.
I mean, I love the idea that now they have tech, kind of like an Iron Man suit, and be able to kind of fly and are protected more so with like an armor and what have you, which was cool. It's just I couldn't get over the helmet side of things. I'm like, they damn look like Predator. Okay, sure, we'll go with that. Fear the Midnight Angels, and I love Okoye's like opposition to the name, to the suit in general. She's just like, why?
That scene too of like when they're trying to get away from the feds, and Riri shoots the drone. What the fuck is white folks thinking having the drone strike target on the princess of Wakanda? Like, what are they like? Like, what are you thinking? Like, what are you hoping to gain there? You gonna gun her down? Like, what are you like? What is? I watched the movie. I'm like, what are you trying to accomplish here? If you
Or are you not aware that this is the most advanced nation on Earth? Like, and they have something to take said drone down.
Yeah.
Or they just
really
don't
short-sighted.
give a fuck.
They can eradicate the United States of America off the fucking planet. Like I don't know what you were doing, like thinking, like having a drone targeted at Shuri on a motorcycle. That was wild to me. I couldn't get past that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you.
Is this the good segue to talking about Riri?
I was about to mention that. Yeah, because we have we were introduced to Riri Williams, who is Ironheart. Her series will be in late 2023 on Disney Plus. It's going to be a 6-episode series. She is a brilliant MIT student who, in the comic books, she is kind of like a
Tony Stark protege.
Yeah, protege of Tony Stark, and he like actually like a hologram of him becomes her like AI or whatever, or which makes me think that maybe not in the series, but maybe down the road, Robert Downey Jr. will come back and be like her AI voice. I mean, who knows?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I think they missed the mark on that. And so
Yeah.
they missed the mark. Like they kind of used Peter Parker. They kind of use Peter Parker as the understudy to Tony Stark in the movies.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
And
Yeah.
they really missed the mark of like introducing her sooner, since her tech is models. It's like a souped up version of Tony Stark's tech. So, in the comic book, she's like a protege to Tony Stark. When Tony Stark dies, the AI becomes very prevalent. But they kind of brought her in a little bit sooner, and having that commonality of tech and intellect with Tony would have been huge. I get why they use Spider-Man because he's a bigger character, and having those 2 stars in the same. I get it, but what could have been, man? What could have been?
Yeah,
Tony.
Well,
So go ahead, Justin.
No, I was just gonna say, what did y'all think about her in this movie? Do y'all think that this character was needed to be in this movie? Because I feel like that's one of the things that maybe they could have not had that would have made the movie not as stuffed as it was.
I'd like to go last because this also goes into some of my plot hole questions that I'd like to pose to everyone here and the chat.
Okay, so Tristan, what are your thoughts on Riri Williams in this movie?
I was very excited. I was remarkably excited. I thought her character, while not 100% essential, it was just fun. Like I loved how she fit in with just honestly the whole Black aesthetic in Wakanda, and I felt like the way they introduced her as a character and connected her with Wakanda, I felt like she was fighting for something, right? Like that was part of her motivation throughout the film, and like obviously she's connected with everything that's happening in the MCU, and this is a great way to introduce that character, who's we've only heard about in the comics, but a lot of people are really excited, myself included, from what I read about her in the comics. Yeah, like I said, I can understand someone saying like, "Hey, you didn't need her in this movie,"
right.
But I'm super glad she was there.
Yeah, I mean, they made her a key part of the story because she created this device or this whatever that could find vibranium. So they made it work. It wasn't like it was like out of nowhere or just tacked on. I don't know. I feel like she was in the movie solely because she has a series coming up and they wanted to like introduce her in a cool way and then like lead the series. That's what Marvel does with all this stuff. They're, very successful at what they do. So I get it. Frank, what did you think about the character in the movie?
At first, so when I read that she'll be in the movie a couple years ago, I was kind of like, it's kind of out of order. Like, this is the Tony Stark protege. Why is she in this movie?
Yeah.
But when you watch the movie and you watched like the renaissance of the female characters in this movie, it fit with the Okoye. I mean, I see it as the 4 pillars, like Angela Bassett, Danai, Letitia, and now I'm not sure. I don't know her name in real life, but those 4 pillars I thought they were very important, especially with the messaging that the movie was sending as well. The female renaissance, I thought it fit, and she was a breath of fresh air. She was funny. I mean, she was lighthearted. I mean, singing. I mean, I don't think any movie can be short of intellect, super tech geniuses. I mean, I was totally fine with that. Like she did a great job, and I and I think as well it did a good job of setting up her TV debut next year too. So
Yeah.
so to have her in this movie, and setting up things for the future for her, I can't wait to see what's in store for her. It left me wanting to know where the story is going to go with her now in the MCU. Will she be
Right.
part of the Avengers initiative? Will she part of the West Coast Avengers? I mean, we don't know, but seeing her in this movie, I was excited to see her. So I had no
Yeah.
issue.
Dominique Thorne, by the way.
Yeah, that's the actress Dominique Thorne.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think the character was exciting, and I think it's cool to have another Iron Man like analog kind of character out there. I do think it was interesting how they didn't let her keep her suit. Um, that might be for budget reasons in the show. She got the cool car though back, so she's got her car. So I'm sure we'll see the car again in the series. But overall, I like the character. I don't know. I think they could have done without it in the movie. So Brittany, let's get to your thoughts on Ironheart.
So
what are your issues with her?
it's not with her.
Yeah.
It's the events surrounding her. I thought she, like what many of y'all have said, she was a great addition to this movie. It's a very heavily female-led movie, and to add a younger kind of generation to it, she keeps it 100, which was cool, especially when she first encountered Okoye and Shuri in her dorm and telling them all the things, and then realizing, oh my God, like the feds are after me, and she's holding up her boom and it gets sliced, and calling out Okoye's ashy head. And I'm like, why? Why would you do that? Like, we're not supposed to tear each other down. We're supposed to lift each other up. Like, what the hell? No, she was great. I thought she was a great addition for sure. And I definitely agree with what Tristan said earlier about her feeling a part of the Wakandan life. And she said it herself when in that big final battle out at sea, when she's flying around and going after the, I want to say Atlanteans, but it's the other word. Doesn't matter. You get my point. She says it herself. She says, for the queen, because the queen is who saved her from drowning in the throne room and died as a result of it. And so there's that sense of purpose for sure. Now, I understand the reason that they brought her in as a brilliant MIT student who designed this device, but this is the plot hole that I have issue with. And it's actually a plot hole that John, my husband, brought to my attention because he's real techie. He's real into that kind of thing. The device that she designed was intended for a school project. I don't think it was intended to locate vibranium per se, because that would mean she'd had to have the vibranium resource in order to test it out. Okay. So if the device was not intended to locate vibranium and it was a school project, then who sold it to the CIA, and how did the CIA get their hands on vibranium in order to locate the vibranium out in the Atlantic Ocean? So big plot hole right there. Again, that's credited to John.
I don't know.
Right. Right. I mean, I don't, and to put it in the hands of a 19-year-old, it's like, well, unless she was recruited by Contessa Valentina de Fontaine or whatever the fuck her name is. By the way, I thought it was kind of funny how they tied her into this whole universe by having been married to Martin Freeman's character.
Yep.
Hilarious to me. But, unless, let's say, because she is the director for the CIA, de Fontaine,
Right.
Unless she was recruited by her to have created this device to locate vibranium, that's just something that we didn't get. But I don't think that was the original plan for this device. It's just a matter of, okay, did the school or did the professor sell the plans? How did the CIA get a hold of it? How did the CIA get vibranium? Because apparently no one can get a hold of vibranium, right? According to Queen Ramonda. The second issue that I have surrounding Riri's character is that initially when Namor introduced himself to the Queen and Shuri out of the waters, is that he wants them to find the scientist, which is Riri, so that they can bring her to him so he can kill her because of the device that she made. Well, then all plans are abandoned once two of his people are killed by Nakia. So it's like now his whole mission is not to kill the scientists anymore, because that was the whole bargaining chip with Shuri when she goes down to Talocan and tries to diplomatically come to an agreement of, okay, well, you want to protect your nation, I want to protect mine, but the girl needn't die. Like, let me take her back to Wakanda, and like that's that. And he's like, no, I can't risk that. Like, I just can't. And so like the things that revolve around Riri are the issue. It's not her as the character. It's just like the plot around her.
Yeah,
And
those are good
scene.
points. Yeah, those are good. Yeah,
I think to answer your second question about him deviating from the plan of like killing the scientists when his people got killed, I think one thing the movie displayed over the 2 hours and 45 minutes is that how much he values his people and how much he wants to protect his people. And I think when his when those two people got killed underwater, that in his mind, I think he failed them, right? Because like throughout this whole movie, Tolokan is a sacred place, and he wants to protect the people at all costs. And I think he values the life of his people more than anything. So I think that emotional state that Letitia felt, her character felt in the movie, I think he felt too once he saw, because that might be the first time in his history that anybody underwater has died under his protection. Right. 500 years he's been alive. So
very likely.
I think when he saw that, I think that kind of just put everything on the tailspin. Like, fuck the scientists, fuck everything else. I'm gonna murder the queen and whoever. Because just the scene before, he said, if anybody comes underwater or Wakandan ship, if anybody comes to retrieve the princess, I'm going to kill you and wipe Wakanda off the planet. So in that way, in some fashion, he did hold on to that promise once one of his people got killed. And I think that's when everything got thrown out of whack for him.
And that's fine. I mean, it's a minor plot hole compared to the device plot hole, but just his initial need to protect his nation from the surface world, as he called it. It was this little girl, the device that she made, that we need to stay hidden. And you're right, absolutely right. In probably the 500 years of his lifetime, no one probably has died under his watch, and this happened when you let in outsiders, basically. And so like that's completely minor compared to the other thing. But yeah, I just wanted to share that out there because I've since researched, a couple of these plot holes, and I haven't really heard anyone mention about the device and the vibranium and like how did people get a hold of it. So it's just you heard it here first. Thanks, John.
Right. Yeah, I mean, for the second one, I think, like Frank said, it's that old Mike Tyson quote where everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. And so, he got punched in the face for the first time, and his plan went out the window. So.
And the same day that he allows a human being underwater, same day that someone gets killed.
Right.
It has to focus you as a leader, someone who prides himself in protecting his people. So I think that really hit home with him. Literally hit home with him.
Yeah.
I think that's what he took personal. So
sounds very reminiscent of England coming to the New World. We're here to show you a better way to live.
Right.
So in this movie, we met the new Black Panther, right? I think we also met the next Black Panther. Let's get to the emotional mid-credit scene, which one of the better like post mid-credit scenes I think ever. So we find out that T'Challa and Nakia had a child that well, I wouldn't say no one knew about. Queen Ramonda knew about the child because the child, you do see the child more than once. The child is in the movie earlier in the movie. He's the one that greets her whenever there's kids playing. Did y'all notice that? It's the same kid, yeah.
Yeah.
So
sweet kid, cute kid.
Right. We meet Nakia and T'Challa. Their son, his name is Toussaint, but his Wakanda name is T'Challa. So this was like this is like the MCU like perfectly like saying, okay, we're not recasting, you know, T'Challa, Chadwick Boseman's character, but there will be another T'Challa. So, Brittany, what'd you think about that scene? What'd you think about that decision to have another T'Challa coming up?
I think it was beautifully done because throughout this whole movie, Shuri has struggled with accepting tradition and accepting that she needs to move on from her brother's death. And she always, not always, but she had said that when she feels, or she felt that she couldn't do that because she wants to see the world burn, basically. And letting go of that grief, letting go and remembering him in the tradition of what her mother wanted her to do with the burning of the funeral clothing, and finally letting it go. But then she gets like a piece back of her brother in the form of her nephew. And that's what really, like, the music that was leading up to it, the whole of it leading up to that moment of Nakia saying, I've arranged for everything, but I gotta do one more thing. And Shuri's like, no, let me do this by myself. And then you see Nakia walking in with the little boy and saying, you know, can we join you now? And the look on Shuri's face, like, well, who is this? And when he says, you know, I'm Toussaint, and then he says, but my Wakandan name is Prince T'Challa, son of King T'Challa. And I'm like, oh my God, like, this is wonderful. I was just, it's a beautiful way of honoring the character. It's a beautiful way of carrying on sort of the mantle in a way. And I'm excited to see Prince T'Challa in the coming films, TV series, whatever the case may be. But how they wrote his introduction for a mid-credit was just beautifully done. Like I said, I had tears. It was so quiet in the theater. Like, even those little kids that were running their mouths throughout the whole thing were quiet as well. And I'm like, thank God, because I think something would have been lost if they were talking. But I the mannerism too kind of seemed like that of his father with learning Shuri's name, and she says to him, "Oh, Toussaint, like, that's a great name." And he's like, "Thanks, I like yours too, I guess." It's just so sweet, so wonderful.
And
Frank, what about you?
And let's not overlook the historical context of
Toussaint.
Like, Dominique Francois Toussaint Louverture was a Haitian general during
Yes.
the revolution against the French, trying to.
Mhm.
So that's to add that historical context of that name. I teared up hearing that name first, and then when I heard T'Challa, I was like, God damn, this is like you're throwing in history with this. Like, it was just so much going on because
You didn't cry thug tears, did you? You just cried.
I just cried. I sobbed.
There you go.
I sobbed. I definitely sobbed when I heard that because you know, Toussaint is such a revolutionary figure in Haitian culture, Black culture, and to have that name in there, and then say, oh, by the way, I'm gonna throw a little nugget in here too. Here's the future king of Wakanda in the next 10 years or so in the coming films. I thought it was beautifully done. Again, to pivot and to be able to adjust with this plan, with everything that happened, and to still keep the name T'Challa as a fixture for future Marvel films. It was done so tastefully. as the character's death in the film was done tastefully, so was the character's his name being brought to life for future films was done as tastefully, if not more tastefully. So it was great, and like knowing that, you know, Ramonda knew that this child was even around, brought closure for me for her death as well. You know, I mean, being a grandmother and not, like, dying, sacrificing yourself to save somebody, but knowing that you have
A legacy.
a legacy left behind, outside of your daughter, I thought was beautifully planned, and the pebbles of that being planned for future films was just, what can you say, just genius.
Tristan, what do you think?
At that point, I was like deep in tears over the last 15 minutes. But that I'm just not doubting Marvel anymore, man. Like they Marvel plus Ryan Coogler, like they just know what they're doing, and it's just beautiful storytelling. Like it pays off a lot of the romantic tension that was there in between T'Challa and the kid and Black Panther 1. Lets you know like that wasn't all for naught. It pays off the making sure we have a T'Challa in the MCU. And then it was the emotional part of Shuri seeing, like you said, like the legacy lives on. It was amazing. Like that was one of my favorite parts of the movie. It's in my top 5 or 6 just favorite parts, and it's beautiful. Like I said, it was a great way to end that because man, I couldn't take any more tears at that point because I had to take my glasses off. Man, it was embarrassing out here. It was.
Yeah, no, it really was like a perfect ending to that movie. I think
Yeah.
that was something they really executed very well. My only regret is like, I mean, yeah, T'Challa, another T'Challa is great, but I mean, Aegon was right there. They could have named him Aegon.
Justin,
We need more Aegons. Come on, we talked about this. Got to bring some levity to it. Hey, we're about to wrap up, but before we get out of here, I want to talk about a character who I think I wish we would have seen more of Winston Duke's M'Baku. And I want to talk about how at the end of the film, he talks about challenging for the throne. So my question to the group is, who is he challenging?
I don't think anybody steps up. I really don't think anybody steps up. I think he'll be the ruler of Wakanda. And I think, because I think for Shuri, I think her character is more focused on protecting Wakanda, not Wakanda from the throne. If that makes sense. And it makes even more sense for future films, especially the Avengers. I have a feeling that she's going to be the person that's going to sub in for Chadwick in the King Dynasty Avengers movie that's coming out in the next couple of years, and the other Avengers movies. So she's going to be too busy fighting off world intergalactic threats, and she can't do too much of that from the throne. I think that's going to be her mindset, and I think you're going to see a lot of M'Baku in future films because I think he will be the ruler of not only the Jabari but of Wakanda as a whole.
So the titles will be separate. You'll have M'Baku will be the ruler, king, and then you'll have Shuri as the Black Panther. Yeah,
because I think more importantly too, like I think another reason why I don't think anybody's gonna rival M'Baku for that throne, because there was a line that that Winston character said when he was talking to Shuri. I think Shuri asked to some effect, "Why are you here?" And he's like, "Well, I promised your brother to be an advisor for you here and always." And for T'Challa to entrust Shuri's life well-being with M'Baku, a guy that he was at odds with in the beginning of Black Panther 1, and you saw over Black Panther 1 and even in Infinity War when Thanos attacks Wakanda, M'Baku shows up and they say something in their language and something like, "Thank you, brother," or "I'm here for you, brother," whatever. So I think in small nuggets you see the connection of T'Challa and M'Baku over time, and I think not only with T'Challa, but I think that resonates with the rest of Wakanda, because the maturation of M'Baku, the Jabari were kind of like stepchildren in Wakanda. They were forgotten. They're in the mountains. Nobody cares about them. And now he's made this. He went from there to now being in the
council.
That says a lot about his character. Yeah. So I think the sheer respect that people have for M'Baku, I don't think anybody's gonna challenge him. I think he will be king of Wakanda.
I want to see Okoye challenge him. He called her a bald-headed demon. He's got to pay for that.
Quick work.
Slight work.
Very light work.
I mean, he's without his armor, right? I mean, Namor smashed the shit out of his armor. So
were you guys the only people that thought that he was gonna be done after this? Like I thought when Namor punched him in the chest and he flew through that little hut or whatever, I thought he was done. Because I figured in that scene that somebody of levity was gonna get killed in that. And I mean, we found out it was gonna be the queen, but I thought M'Baku was gonna have a short run for a second. I was really nervous for him.
Nah,
That's a big
no.
dude, man.
Yeah,
I wasn't because
Yesenia in the chat says no.
there were reports that he like redid his deal before this movie.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
he like we're gonna see a lot more of him, and
Yeah.
so it's
Good.
Disney. They're in the Winston Duke business, I think, for a while. So
I mean,
Winston
Walt
Duke.
Disney,
right,
Walt Disney, Winston Duke. Hey, WD,
Yeah.
WD.
He's about to take a big star turn. Yeah, I saw the news of that deal. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
he'll be back. Yeah, he will return. Like there's not just Black Panther, but a lot of those people will return at the very end of the movie. Yeah. So let's get our final thoughts on we could talk about this movie forever, but let's just
3
go
hours.
around real quick. Final thoughts on the movie. I'll start out with Tristan. What are your overall, like, coming out of this movie? What will you like never forget? What's the big thing you're going to take away from this film?
Man, it's our time. Lupita Nyong'o. I think it's for me to have a conversation about Lupita, man. That's a problem. But
That's going to be an after hours pod.
Man, as far as the film though, my film is that the execution. You could talk about plot holes. Like there's plot holes in all of these movies.
Yeah.
But they executed it well under shitty circumstances. And they made a movie, like Justin said, that will age very well for a lot of different reasons. The cultural aspect of it, the fact that it's so female empowered and women are really center stage in this at every level of this movie. It's an amazing movie. Loved it. Glad I saw it twice. I'm probably gonna go see it next weekend again. And yeah, they did it.
Tristan's going to be the reason why it gets to $1 billion in like a short amount of time.
Brittany, what are your takeaways from Wakanda Forever?
I really enjoyed it. I mean, when we first saw Black Panther, and I meant to share this video before the premiere, and I completely forgot to do that. It's a Watchers Extra. We were actors before we were podcasters. Not really.
Oh yeah, that was classic. Yeah,
but that was fun, showing our excitement for Black Panther. And like I said at the top of the show, I really didn't have any expectations going into the movie, but I think that worked out for my benefit because I did come out really having enjoyed this movie, despite the fact that at one point it's like, okay, I've been sitting for a really long time, but I'm really invested in this story. I'm really invested in these characters and what's going to happen. And also getting that little bit of a cultural shout out in this movie. And I think bringing maybe some history to people who weren't aware of what was going on in Latin America and seeing, we too have experienced our own struggles. And that of course resonated with me, seeing Tenoch Huerta, be introduced into the MCU. Looking forward to seeing what his character is going to do in the coming films or TV shows, whatever the case may be. And seeing Toussaint, aka Prince T'Challa, come into the fold and seeing what he'll do as well. But then also, of course, just how all this is going to play into the future of the Avengers movie for this. What is this saga now called? The
Multiverse Saga.
Multiverse Saga. Thank you. Totally spaced out on that. So yeah,
phases 4, 5, and 6 of the Multiverse Saga.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing these characters moving forward. Ryan Coogler, do not leave the MCU ever. Keep doing what you're doing, bro. Like it's wonderful stuff.
Yeah. Frank, final thoughts.
This is my favorite movie of the MCU, by far, for many reasons. Most notably, just the continual elite storytelling of one Ryan of House Coogler. I don't know what else you can say about this man. From the casting to the story to getting closure of a character. I think, I don't know many directors that could pivot the way that he did with what happened to one of our brightest stars on this planet. but to be able to still formulate such a powerful story that's going to reign on for many more years to come. Like I think when we look back on this film, we're going to remember some highlight acting performances, from Letitia to Angela. The UN scene and the scene in the throne room are going to be like, they're going to reign like kind of like how certain movies like, You Can't Handle the Truth and in a Few Good Men and like other like iconic lines, that Angela Bassett in this film is going to have a few lines that's going to reign forever in Hollywood. And Ryan Coogler and his team of writers are a big reason for that. I can't wait to see what else comes from the mind of Ryan Coogler. I can't wait to see what else comes from the future of this mantle of Black Panther. I'm probably gonna see the movie about 4 or 5 more times. I'm not kidding. I saw the first movie 9 times in theaters. I'll
I
probably
remember that.
Yeah, I'll probably rival that in with this film as well. There's nothing else I can say about this that hasn't been said already. The female revolution of minorities in this film, even with Namor's character, with Namor, like she. I mean, I know a lot of people not gonna remember her role, but she had a great role in this movie too. So I can't wait. I can't wait to see what else comes from this. I can't wait to see how MCU builds on this going forward with other films. But I can't wait to see Black Panther and many more films to come. So A1.
Very cool. So this is your number one movie in the MCU. Well, it's also Drew, our good friend Drew Weiss from the North. He's seen the movie 3 times. He wasn't able to join us. He wanted to join us, but work and school stuff got in the way. But he wanted me to let everyone know that it's his new number one MCU film of all time. So shout out to Drew. And now it's time for us to rank. The final thing we're doing tonight, we're ranking Phase 4 films. There's 7 films. I'm going to read them off. Then we're going to get everybody's rankings and we're going to get out of here. Okay, so in the order they released, we have Black Widow, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Eternals, Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Thor Love and Thunder, and finally Black Panther Wakanda Forever. So that's 7 movies the MCU's put out since July of 2021. So basically like in a 15 month period, they put out 7 movies. That's a lot. Let's get, who wants to get their rankings first? Brittany, you got them? Go for it.
I'll go, and also invite everyone in the chat or those who are watching the replay to leave your rankings in the comments down below as well. We'll be sure to talk with you about that. So my rankings for Phase 4 of the MCU go like this. Number 1. Actually, I'm gonna go backwards. I'm gonna start with number 7. Number 7, Eternals.
Okay.
Number 6, Black Widow. Number 5, Shang-Chi. The next 2, numbers 3 and 4, I can change. There's various reasons, but for this purpose, I will say number 4 is Thor: Love and Thunder.
Okay.
Number 3 is Black Panther.
Okay.
Number 2, Doctor Strange, and number 1, Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Okay. Tristan, you ready to go?
I'll go backwards as well.
Okay.
These first 3, be honest with you, haven't seen. Well, no, the last one I put it on and I fell asleep halfway through, so this has to be last.
Okay.
That's Eternals.
Okay.
I have to retry that another time. Thor, Doctor Strange, haven't seen. Sorry.
Okay.
Doctor Strange, it takes a lot to get me out the bed to see Doctor Strange, but I'm gonna see him. All right, so for my real listing, number 4, Black Widow.
Okay.
3, Spider-Man.
Wow. Okay.
2, Shang-Chi.
Okay.
And 1, Wakanda Forever.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Wow, Shang-Chi for number 2 for Tristan. Interesting.
Good Lord, I love
We
Shang-Chi.
definitely have different lists for sure. Frank, what about you?
I'll also go last to first.
Okay.
Strange, I have dead last.
Wow.
That movie was a waste of my time.
Good God, you guys are killing
It's not
me.
that bad.
It did nothing. It did nothing to like for
That's fine. That's fine.
the multiverse dilemma. They had numerous opportunities to really hit on like the whole mutant conflict, mutant.
Frank. I love you. Don't give me a reason to not. Okay, just don't.
Saying, like, I just thought it was
Just
the
don't.
multiverse was a big waste of time of like other multiversal characters that you want to never see again going forward. So I have that last.
My God.
I have Eternals second to last, only because it's just, again, they didn't do a good job explaining to me why the fuck they didn't
help
with the whole Thanos thing. Like you can't have these powerful individuals, and you can't explain why you wasn't involved in Thanos' dilemma. That to me made no sense to me, and it was just too fucking long. I'm sorry, it was too long, and for a Marvel movie, you gotta have action. It didn't have enough action for me, so I have that second to last. Thor: Love and Thunder, I have third.
Number 5, you mean?
You're number 5. Yeah, I think I can't remember the director's name, but I think he has a
Taika Waititi.
Yep.
Waititi does a very poor job of being vulnerable with his characters. Everything's a joke to him, and again, for me, it's like Thor lost a lot. If Shuri lost a lot, Thor lost his pappy, his mommy, his brother. You know what I'm saying? His love.
Twice. 3 times.
And everything is still a joke to him for Thor. And it's just like, I'm like if you see Thor in Endgame and Thor in Love and Thunder, they're 2 different Thors. And I don't understand why, because like the movies are like right by each other. So I have that 5th. 4th, I have Black Widow. The movie was great. I just thought it was poor placement. Like that should have came out right after Civil War and right before Infinity War. So for me, knowing what happened and like knowing like the story already wrapped up and just kind of like going back 4 movies, it kind of didn't make sense to me. So I thought the placement with that was very poor. I have Shang-Chi 3rd in my top 3. Having an Asian character in the MCU of this ilk, his ability, his fighting ability, the stories, the story in itself, the 10 rings, what the 10 rings signify going forward for Marvel, I think it's going to be huge for them. If they hit it right. The comic relief with Awkwafina in the movie I thought was really, really good. The martial arts sequences, man, golly, the bus scene, bro. The bus scene in that movie is one of the best action sequences I've ever seen in the film, ever. So, second, Spidey. I love Spider-Man. To me, it was a perfect movie. Having Doctor Strange in there as a feature character, pretty much, it's kind of a soft reboot to the character as well, going forward too. Going back to the old school Spider-Man. Tobey Maguire. Good Lord, I went back.
Bite your tongue. Tom Holland.
Tom Holland acting top in that movie, displaying the emotion that he did in that movie, the different depths of that was great. Hot Aunt May, loved it. So that's second.
Hot Aunt May no more.
Right.
Yeah, I know, right? And then first, Wakanda Forever, man. This movie for me, I'm living in a Black utopia of regalness, with being a Black man and watching so many Black films in my lifetime. You see a lot of Black trauma films, from slavery to civil rights movement to, I know my history. I get it. I want to see more regalness in my Black characters. And so getting this series, this franchise out in the open and out on the big screen, I get emotional every single time I watch Black Panther. To this day, the first Black Panther, I get emotional every single time because of what it means for Black culture going forward, and even more emotional now that we lost, our champion in Chadwick. But the story of Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, was great, and like I said, the cast was great. It's going to be a film that I'm never going to forget. I'm going to tell my grandkids about the moment when this 5-year period of 2 Black Panther movies after like 80 years of like no Black films to get this moment of time is something that I'm going to tell my grandkids for sure. So that's my list.
Very well said. Okay, I'll give you my list real quick. So number 7, Shang-Chi. I like the character. I hated the 3rd act of the movie, the dragons and the CGI and the creatures. Didn't like it. Number 6 is Eternals. Thought it was okay. Number 5, Black Widow. I actually enjoyed the movie. I just think there's better movies. Number 4, I have Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. It's kind of a mixed bag, the whole movie. Number 3, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. As I said from the top, I thought there's a lot of stuff to like. We've talked about it extensively in this show. A couple things I didn't like. Number 2, Thor: Love and Thunder. I like the comedy. I like what Taika did with the character. I think it's okay to have a silly character. And my number 1, Spider-Man: No Way Home. I think No Way Home is one of the best MCU movies ever. I think it's right up there with Endgame and Infinity War. So that's my list. You've heard our lists. You've heard our rankings. Now we want to know yours. Brittany, how can people tell us their Phase 4 movie rankings?
Well, shout out to everyone who joined us in the chat today. We appreciate you being here. Shout out to Nick, all the way from the UK, Walking with the Woods. Yesenia, a longtime fan of the Watchers in the Basement. And to Trisha, the Texas Potterhead. We appreciate you all being here. Once again, share us your thoughts on the rankings, but also overall thoughts on the Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And you can do so by, 1, subscribing to our YouTube channel here. Also, don't forget to like this video, helps out our algorithm, but also be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Simply search at Watchers Basement. That's once again Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also use the hashtag Watchers Basement to help grow our audience. You can also use it when you want to send us articles, memes. We love memes and other things that you want us to review. This week is a very busy week for the Watchers. We've got loads of reviews coming your way, starting with Wednesday. If you're into AMC's Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire, I'll be back with Amber to talk about season 1 wrap up. On Thursday, you'll be joined by Frank, George, and Tristan, I believe, who will be covering the premiere of Yellowstone. So that's exciting. And then finally, for Friday, Frank and I will be back to talk about the season 2 premiere of AMC's Gangs of London. So very excited. We got a pretty full week. So be sure to once again subscribe here to our YouTube channel. And lastly, we also have audio podcasts that you can check out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Thanks to Anchor.fm. Give us a 5-star rating to help us out to grow our audience, because although we are not a large podcast, we are a proud one.
Thank you, Brittany. Appreciate it. So for Brittany, for Tristan, for Frank, this is Justin saying we'll see you in a few hours. Like we have a ton of pods this week, as you heard Brittany say. So definitely check us out on YouTube and Spotify and all that good stuff. But until then, have a good night. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Wakanda forever.